So here's a simple question for you guys. What do you think of the Division Year 5 roadmap that recently got announced in that whole Division Day event? I would really just kind of call it a debacle. It wasn't very good. At least, I mean, the presentation and everything besides for the roadmap was kind of cringe. But the Year 5 roadmap, let's talk about it. All right, so we already know we got, Broken Wings Season 1, and that's going to be when they release Descent. And of course, that starts the castle rebuild, and it comes with its own little apparel event. We got Season 2, Puppeteers, which brings in the Incursion, which could be interesting, who knows. Castle rebuild continued, and another apparel event. Season 3, Vanguard, which is, of course, tied to Aaron Keener. If you didn't know, Vanguard was Aaron Keener's supposed call sign in Division 1. So that goes back to New York. Supposedly it's dealing with his rogue, like leftovers or something. I'm not entirely sure what exactly they're planning with it, but it's got a holiday event and an apparel event. And then, of course, finally, we got Black Diamond Season 4, which includes some story DLC, Seasons 2.0, and an apparel event again. Now, just looking at it, I mean, we've already seen it. Here's kind of what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they've arranged it from worst to best. This is honestly what I'm hoping, because, look, I've already looked at the Descent mode. It's not that great. I think a lot of players already agree with this. It'll be interesting for a little bit. I mean, look, I'm not saying that Descent mode is bad or anything. I mean, it's a fairly enjoyable kind of like standalone thing. But in the terms of the Division, what people expect from the game, what people kind of want from the Division, it's not really there. And it's just kind of, it leaves probably a majority of the player base with kind of like a, what is this? Like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't why I play the game. This is just something that's good for, like, kind of like some side distraction. But the amount of effort that they put into it, to make a side distraction probably isn't worth the amount of time and effort that players are going to actually get out of it. And that's my biggest critique of it. It can be as fun as it wants to be, but in the end, it's probably just going to be a very short-lived mode that really could have been better spent doing other things in the game. And what I actually basically would prefer is something that actually expands the entire game, like the story DLC that we're looking at Season 4. And I know people are going to be like, well, they put that in there, they're just adding this because, they probably had some extra time or something. Well, if they had extra time, they could just made that extra stuff they were adding bigger and made that PvP better and fixed some of the problems with the game instead of making that mode. That's all I'm saying. There's just a bit of a problem with the Descent mode being there because it's really not that great. I mean, they've already got Countdown. Like, Countdown's a great mode. Descent mode, eh. Anyway, moving on from that, we got the Incursion. Like I've already said, Incursion, I really hope for the best with Incursions. And, whatever this castle rebuild thing is. The Incursions interest me because I did prefer Incursions over raids, because I think raids were just too ridiculous. Like the amount of time and investment and just trying to get 8 people together to form a task, and the tasks that you were doing just weren't very fun anyway. Like, I'd prefer Incursions because it was just like a 4-man normal group with much more difficulty in basically accomplishing something, and it just kind of, it felt good when you were doing it, but at the same time, looking back on the Incursions that we had in Division 1, they weren't very good. My biggest problem with them was just the lack of new and innovative. I mean, they were kind of, there were some mechanics that they added, like the fire truck and having the whole like fire blocks of, basically just like the entire ground turns to lava. I mean, that was kind of fun, maybe a little bit preschool, but still kind of fun. Like the Falcon Lost APC, obviously it just shot a missile and that was pretty much it. It was really stupid. I would like something that would involve a little bit more movement. And my fear is that this Incursion that they're adding, I really hope it does do something that it actually brings something new to the game that we don't get normally. However they're going to accomplish that, I don't know. But I mean, if it is just, literally they're calling it an Incursion, it's just a big mission, it's like a stronghold but shorter, and it's just, the same kind of like gameplay, the same kind of fight. There's going to be like the big cleaner. Yeah, like if that's really what it's going to be, if it's just going to be a big cleaner and or maybe four big cleaners. I don't know. Like if it's literally like the four horsemen from the incursion in Division 1. I mean, like that's just gonna be peak cringe. If that's all it is, that's gonna be bad. They need to actually do something interesting with this. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it, right? Don't call it an incursion if you're not gonna actually literally take it to the next level. If it's just going to be a stronghold but shorter, it's just ugh. It makes me cringe hard. So hopefully it's something good. I mean, at least it's in the game, unlike Descent mode. So that's a plus. All right, and then of course season 3. Now I'm not exactly sure what they're doing with this. The big thing is just saying that we're going back to New York. Obviously, that could just be some sort of cover for a mode or some sort of like events that are going on that we don't know about. But it really seems like season 3 is going to be not really adding too much. At least that's the feeling I get. Now, of course, they said you're going to be dealing with kind of like the rogues that the legacy, I guess, of Aaron Keener and that kind of stuff. What that means, I don't necessarily know. What they're going to be adding, I don't necessarily know. It seems more like it's a build up for season 4, which is great. If they're actually like building up something, kind of like going into a little bit of the story, maybe starting the prep work for what we're going to be doing in season 4. That sounds cool. But overall, season 3 seems like it's going to be by itself. Very limited, limited in scope, just kind of not really too impressive. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Hopefully there is some kind of like stuff hidden there that I don't know about. Maybe the holiday event is actually a lot more impressive than the previous ones. I mean, if you want to call holiday events, whatever. We'll see what that actually entails. Maybe it's something cool and a little bit more interesting than just like, hey, this guy carries loot and you shoot him and then you get a sniper rifle or an SMG or a mask. Maybe it's a little bit better than that. Who knows? But I mean, not to say anything's wrong with that. Hopefully the item's cool because I do. Besides, okay, I like the mask. The mask is pretty cool. But the SMG, the sniper rifle, I'm just kind of like shooting the grunts in Halo. What was it? What was that? The birthday party mode or what, I forget, where you get the shot on the grunt's head and it was just a spring like confetti out of nowhere. I thought that was kind of fun, and I like the whole sniper with Division 2. But anyway, enough of that. Okay, so we got the season 4, which is going to be the story DLC seasons 2.0. Look, here's my problem with the Division. It's always like a letdown, and that's my biggest problem. Right, they kind of promise things, or they talk about things, and it sounds really great, and then the delivery just falls flat. And that's been the biggest problem with Division since I think 2013. They promised the moon, and then you get a piece of cheese. Yeah. So I mean, we all know, 2013. Looking at the E3 trailer, the Division looked absolutely sick. 2014 trailer still looked great. 2015 trailer, we started to see some of the cracks. Some of the reality was hitting in, but the game, they kind of just didn't really focus on the rest of the game. They just kind of showed some of the PvP side, and they didn't really talk about any of the changes that were going to be hitting us on the PvE side. So we kind of just thought, well, okay, the PvP, this looks good, it looks fun, but all the other stuff of the PvE, oh man, that's going to be amazing. And then, of course, the game launched, and it's really, 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 really compacted to what we thought we were getting, right? And so that kind of hit home. And look, I mean, as disappointing as the Division 1 launch was, it was still a very impressive game, still fun to play. I mean, I loved it, and many people were obviously disappointed. Like 90% of the player base dropped off with in like a few weeks, so that was terrible. But of course, I thought the game was great. My biggest problem was just the lack of support. The developers pretty much said it themselves. Once the game launched, they started working on Division 2. And then once Division 2 launched, pretty much most of the team was just vanished and started working on other projects. And this is a recurring thing in the Division. And I mean, look, I'm amazed that there's any support, that they even came back to continue support with Division 2. I mean, it's great. I mean, am I still kind of bitter that this didn't happen with Division 1? Oh, for sure. Like I'm glad they kind of gave Division One some little bit of stuff to continue on. With the West Side Piers was kind of like their last hurrah, and then they did like Division 1.8.3 or whatever to just kind of fix some last things that they didn't really want to fix at all. They were just kind of like, let's just leave. Uh, but I'm glad that they gave it that stuff. But anyone who loved Division One, like the amount of attention they gave the open world was pitiful. They never added anything besides for that little bit of West Side Pier stuff, which really wasn't all that detailed, right? There was a little bit of hinting towards, going to Washington D.C. with the whole shade signal thing that you could unlock. But other than that, there wasn't too much in the game that they added. Like the open world was just kind of a miserable experience. I mean, look, I kind of enjoyed, hunting the named enemies and farming them, pretty much like once a day or whatever. Any day I'd log in, that would be something I'd kind of like just generically do. But besides that, there wasn't anything to do. And Division Two's done a better job, but still, I mean, we're looking at, again, year 5, right? And they haven't done too much to the world. They haven't added anything. They haven't really spiced it up. And things have gotten boring and stale. And hopefully, this stuff kind of reinvigorates the game. I mean, look, you got to keep your expectations limited because we don't know what we're going to get. Story DLC sounds great. Seasons 2.0 sounds great. So does the whole, what was it, specialization revamp. That sounds great. Where's that at? They don't, like they said it and everyone's like, oh man, specialization revamp. But that was like 2 years ago now, right? I think it was like 2 years ago. God, I don't even remember. But yeah, like, so specialization revamps, where's that stuff at? Like how long is that going to take? Is it even still happening, or are they just like, well, we're just gonna kind of sweep it under the rug, or like, are they just kind of like, oh, what's the bare minimum we can do to like just change it a little bit and just push it out and say like, ta-da, that's what I expect. I expect them to just kind of like sweep something at us, like, oh yeah, you want a specialization revamp? Here you go. We changed some talents around. Yay. Like that's, I kind of expect like some sort of half-hearted thing that they're just going to toss at us because they got sick of trying to figure it out because they couldn't. So what I expect from the story DLC in Seasons 2.0 is very, very, I expect very low bar stuff. Do I hope for better things? Yes, I'd love to see, let's say, like, if you, played Division 1, you remember that starting area, which was Brooklyn. So now, like, if you're familiar with Division 1 from, like the 2013 trailers up to, like Division 2 now, right? You probably remember that, the Division 1 E3 trailer would included like this entire freaking area. Like, this is kind of like the spectrum of the game that we thought we were going to be playing with. Like, this huge map area. Obviously, they cut it down. Division 1 released, and it was pretty much this area right here, with a couple streets removed internally. Like, they cut out a few of the stuff, or a few of the buildings, a few of the streets. It made it smaller, made it slimmer, but it was for the most part pretty 1-to-1 in ratio. However, it was still pretty small area, and if you remember back in the day, like, players wanted to go. Where was the Central Park expansion? Like, why aren't we going to Central Park? Why aren't we exploring a little bit further, a little bit deeper? Why aren't we going to, like, southern Manhattan, that kind of stuff, or lower Manhattan? And it never evolved. There was no real expansion of the game. We never even got to see like any of the bridges. Never got to go across any of the bridges. I mean, there's tons of bridges, and the biggest thing was like the starting area for Division 1 was actually here in Brooklyn. Like, this area right here was the starting area for Division 1. If you actually see some of the stuff where they're like flying right before the Osprey explodes, they're like right here, I think, somewhere in this area. But yeah, so like they were looking over, the Osprey comes, lands, and blows up, and then we get flown from here on the helicopter all the way to Chelsea. I think that's where it was. The piers somewhere over here. Anyway, yeah, I don't exactly remember where they flew, but it's somewhere in that direction. Anyway, so we know that there was plenty of material there. I mean, so this is where we were starting. This is where we ended up at. Division two, obviously, all the way in Washington, and then of course the Woney content is basically restricted to like this area right here. Not much, and of course, you got the island right here. That's it. That's literally everything there. So, I mean, what are they going to do with this expansion, or at least DLC that they're calling it? I don't know. I mean, look, I'd love to have like the bridge open up, like making the bridge like its own little kind of like uh incursion, like where you have to actually cross it. That would be kind of sweet. Um, of course, you can just do fast travel. You don't need to constantly walk across it, but just the option to have it open and be able to loot stuff on it, or fight enemies on it, I think that would be really cool. Um, anyway, if maybe we get to return to Brooklyn a little bit, maybe we get to cross the bridge from there, and that's kind of like would be the DLC area. That could be kind of cool. Um, Hopefully they kind of open up more of like mid Manhattan, so like you're actually up here, East Village stuff, Soho, who knows? I don't know, but that would be kind of cool. If how long is the support for this going to last? That's really the question that I would wonder, because look, I would love for them to just add all this stuff back up here, creating the game that we actually wanted, like creating the content that we wanted, all this just huge amount of space that we can explore and do stuff with. But of course, that's not the game we're on right now. We'll have to see what they actually include with this stuff. Looking at the roadmap again, I don't think it's going to be gigantic, but hopefully it's something interesting and good. And what is Seasons 2.0 going to bring? I mean, we're going to have to see, whether it's really better than the seasons we have now, or if it's just kind of like a slight change from what we have now. I mean, that's going to be really important, I think, for the longevity of the game. And again, we have to see like what is at the end of year 5. Like, is this the end point? Like, are they like, okay, solid ending year 5? That's going to be it. We're going to be moving on. We're done. Or are they going to do a year 6? They're going to continue kind of like stringing this out. And that's kind of the question that I would wonder. Like, are they really moving forward to make like strong hardcore improvements in the game and really build out more content, or is this kind of like they're just kind of like keeping it going for whatever reason, just to keep it going? And if that's the case, like if they're just keeping it going just to keep it going with no real like set goals in mind, I'd kind of be just end it, like just give up on it now, because I'd rather save the content ideas for a future game that's working and good, than just kind of like wasting all the ideas or wasting all the stuff now. I mean, like I'd hate to get a Division 3 and the story's just like, well, everything that we were thinking about going with, in Division 3 has kind of been told by this terrible expansion of Division 2, and we're just kind of going to pull some stuff out of our butts now. That'd be terrible. But I'm hoping that some of this stuff is good. But again, this doesn't really address many of the problems that I think people are having, right now. Of course, look, content is a big problem in the game. Like for this game to actually really compete with stuff, it does need actual content. Like to be a live service, a successful live service, it needs live service content. I mean, Destiny styled content, or World of Warcraft style content. I mean, look, I don't expect like super major huge expansions that are like 8 times what we got when the game launched. But is it too much to ask for like a strong developer team to produce Woney size content every year? I don't think that's really too much. Like having one big expansion every year that is DLC, and supporting it with stuff that keeps coming back, keeps going on, new mini events throughout the year. Like that's great content. That's content that I would consider buying. I would routinely buy DLC for the Division if it existed. If they were to like bring back Division 1 and like start expanding stuff, I would be like, yes. Like I would throw money at, like like it's kind of a meme, oh, you're gonna throw money at the screen, it's gonna be so good. But yes, if they released content for Division 1 that was even acceptable, like I would throw money at the screen. Like give me that stuff right now. Division two. I mean, I kind of have, I kind of bite my lip a little bit more because it's just like it's Division two. It's not as good as Division one in my mind, but I would still pay for content on a regular basis. Anyway, looking at what are they going to add, I don't know. Hopefully it's going to be interesting and good. Hopefully it's going to be worth our time. Hopefully it's going to keep the game alive. Hopefully it's going to keep the developers working on the game and dedicated to the game. But we'll have to see what it's going to bring, and how the, I guess, player base reacts to it. And of course, how the player base reacts to it depends on how much effort the developers actually put into it. And that's kind of like the biggest thing. Like, did they actually put effort into it? And is it going to be good? And is it going to be fun? Is it going to be enjoyable? So yeah, besides for, I guess, improving the lack of content that the game has been suffering from for a few years, just kind of relying on these seasons to generate interest in the game. I mean, there are a couple main things that I think the game just needs to improve, at least fix, especially the, like the shade issues or the expertise issues. Look, I mean, I get that plenty of people put a good amount of effort into getting, like, expertise 22 and on their, gear, and upgrade a bunch of stuff. But I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people who hit 22 on most of their stuff probably cheesed it with the material exploits from deleting characters and having, characters like overshade 2000, and then just like deleting characters and creating them, and then using all the shade bonus points that they got to just fill up their coffers of materials. And I think that's BS, especially for most players who didn't do it. And I think the whole thing that having like a million shade or whatever, and having like 3 million health on your character and going into PvP, I think that's retarded. I think that's ridiculous. And there are people that have that. So I think those are big issues that need to be fixed. And you could be saying, yourself, like, well, it doesn't matter for PvE. Like, who cares, what they do? I mean, I care. Look, if you don't fall into that category of people who like did that stuff, right? And you're not in the category of people who just no life the expertise or the shade or whatever. I mean, even if you didn't cheese it, but you just no lifed it, I think it creates like an unreal kind of bar for most players. Like, if we're talking about like getting new players into the game, because look, the game does require new players. It requires a larger population. However the player base gets that, whatever, doesn't matter. As long as it gets more players, the better. But you're not going to get new players when you have a bar that's just insane. And if players are looking at like this shade thing, which, look, people can still get higher and higher shade right now. So like the bar just keeps growing. Whether they're using, known exploits or maybe even unknown exploits at this point, who knows? But the thing is, you have to have players who are coming into this, and then they go into PvP for the first time, and they get blown out of the water. Why can't I take this guy down? I drop his armor, and he just doesn't die. Why? Well, maybe this guy's got freaking 4 million health. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a bot. Doesn't matter if he can't shoot. I mean, you can't burn through his health. You just can't. Like if he's got like a full on like armor regen build, and like whatever. I mean, look, it's insane. Okay, and if he's using something like Hunter's Fury, where like he gets it down and he's at 100% health again, and he just got 4 million health. F, right, bro? Like F. That's an L. That's an L for everyone. Like this dude could probably solo 4-man teams like nothing. Like if he's good. Like if he's even like moderately good, yeah, like that's insane. That's a big problem. So you get stuff like this going on in the game, and it ruins it. And now, like, look, yeah, okay, well, that's a PvP problem. Well, I mean, in PvE, it's a problem too. Like, if you are not a solo only player, look, most players who are in the division, most people who are in the division are not just solo only. Now, there's a good portion of people who only want to play solo or mostly play solo. But I would say that the vast majority of people in the game are just kind of looking to play with groups. You know, like they go into group matchmaking all the time. Like they get through most of their stuff doing group play, and you know, it's kind of like the expectation is when you go into group play, a lot of it you don't necessarily want to just be carried through everything, right? You want to actually compete. You actually want to, you know, benefit the team. And if you're just getting match made into these like groups where it's just like some dude who has just infinite shade and expertise, and you feel like, you know, you're not doing much, it kind of hurts your interest in the game as a whole. Like, I mean, it's just not fun when you're being carried through literally everything. And if that's kind of where it goes, you know, you're always being match made with people who are just exponentially better than you, have exponentially better gear, exponentially better, you know, like shade, or exponentially better expertise. I mean, there's no way you're going to catch up to these people just because there's just so much. It gets daunting. It's like it's just boring to you. It's daunting to look at, you know, like I don't want to, I mean, personally, I don't want to get that shade. I don't want to spend that many hours to just get, you know, a million health. I don't want to spend that much time farming stuff so I can get, you know, the expertise 22 on my gear. Like, I don't care enough, you know? And thankfully, I'm a fairly good player, and I don't really have too much problem, you know, not having that stuff when I'm doing content currently. In PvP, I won't touch it anymore just because it's not fun. Like, if I'm evenly matched with somebody, but they've done any of this stuff, like, it's just, you know, it's not worth it. You know, like, I'm going to lose because, look, we're evenly matched, but now they have 20% more armor than I do, and 20% more weapon damage than I do. Like, that's, you know, it's not fun. And that kind of result, basically, like, the only option for me at that point is, you know, like, if I'm not going to compete with them, you know, directly build for build, like, I'm probably going to have to go, you know, like some sort of skill build or something, just, you know, blow them up, or I'm going to have to go cheese build, yeah, which, you know, they could equally go cheese build or whatever they want. But I mean, you know, that's the problem. You come across this kind of stuff where you basically just start limiting what players want to do because of the consequences of this progression system. And I think that's one of the things that they need to fix. I think there is a very easy way that they can fix this stuff, but of course, you know, that you run the risk of angering a lot of the player base. I mean, that's just kind of where you go. Do you risk the anger of your I guess many of the people who cheesed the game? Do you risk angering them, or do you risk just ruining the game for newer players? You know, that's kind of one of the things where you got to kind of find a sense of balance. I know what I think the game needs. I think I know what, you know, it's probably a topic that's a little bit taboo for most Division players, and I'll cover it and I'll talk about it in probably a different video. But I think there is a path forward that can resolve a lot of the issues currently, and basically just almost like a clean slate kind of situation that would hopefully resolve a lot of everything in the game as far as progression goes, and maybe even tie into the ability to figure out some of the stuff with, you know, specializations 2.0, if that's what you want to call it. But anyway, you know, that's just kind of my thoughts on year 5. Hopefully, you know, we see some really great things down the road. But as of right now, you know, like everything with the division, when they announce something good and great, you know, I get the guards up, and I'm kind of, you know, suspicious of what they're going to be doing. I do hope for the best. I hope this, you know, this, what they're calling story DLC, is amazing, because that's really the brightest spot to look for in the upcoming future of the game. But yeah, that's, you know, almost a year plus away. Season 4 is not going to be till like you know, 2024, the beginning of 2024, obviously after season 3, and you know, that's going to be the holiday event, so that's December. So yeah, reasonably, we're looking like March 2024 is when we're going to see like this story DLC stuff. I mean, that's a far ways off. I mean, what other games are going to be released between here and now? And you know, we're gonna have to see, guys. I mean, looking at it, it's great to talk about, it's great to think about, but in reality, it's kind of just like, when's enough, and where's the next game that I'm going to be playing? You know, that's kind of what I'm looking at now. But anyway, you know, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.